She's a conservative, and I'm liberal. And yet we've been friends for almost 40 years. Everyone says you shouldn't discuss politics, religion, or money. And we say that's exactly what friends should be talking about. Join us as we tackle the conversations you're having in your head, but are too scared to say out loud. Welcome.
Welcome to We've Got to Talk. It is so good to see you.
It's so
Happy
good.
2026.
Happy 2026. This is going to be a very interesting topic today. I'm so fired up, I'm not sure what's going to happen. There might be listen, Linda, there might be a warning for my swearing because I'm really keyed up about this subject, and I'm very curious to hear what my friend Jolene has to say about this subject. We both listened to the same Mo News podcast that we've recommended this independent news source to you before. We will put this particular episode in the show notes so that you can hear the episode that we're talking about that spurred this our current episode about billionaires and US surrogacy.
You know, and listener and viewer, you've heard us talk about Mo News before. It's a really unbiased, kind of a straightforward podcast in the morning. It's 45 minutes that gives you all the headlines, and then it kind of reads between the lines and gives you a little more in-depth information. It's really good. And Nicole and I both love it because it's very unbiased, as we love to advocate as well. And when this article came out, I sent it to Nicole, and she almost simultaneously sent it to me and said, we've got to talk about this. It's so interesting because for me, my knee-jerk reaction to this story was...
Maybe we should tell them what the story is since they haven't heard it. What before we delve into it, right? Right.
We are getting that cart ahead of this horse.
Yes, we are.
So it's about surrogacy in the U.S. and how there are a lot of international and specifically Chinese billionaires that are having a lot of kids through surrogacy programs in the United States so that their children then have dual citizenship. They're born in the U.S., they are then taken back to China, where they then get dual citizenship. And the thought being, then they raise these kids and have dual citizenship for both countries. It was so interesting to me to hear this because one of the things that Trump did a year ago, one of his first executive orders, was challenging the 14th Amendment, which is birthright citizenship. And I believe that Trump did it to prevent, I think one of the articles I read was talking about birthing tourism or something like that, or birthright tourism, where women intentionally come to the United States to give birth, if you're a resident of another country, because then you have a child that is then, regardless of the mother and father's citizenship, that they then have a child that was born on U.S. soil, so it is a U.S. citizen. And this was something from back in the 1800s. It's an amendment to our Constitution. The 14th Amendment was really kind of geared more towards slaves having children, meant to give citizenship to slave owners to their children. So now, fast forward to where we are today, and it's taken on a whole new meaning. So I really think that, as I read more about this, I think we've got two different issues, but I think the Supreme Court I think they're going to take up the birthright citizenship 14th Amendment executive order that Trump issued this year, it looks like. So it will be interesting to see how deep they get into that and how this then affects the surrogacy problem that is happening.
And what I'm just finding interesting, Jolene, is that because we read a ton of articles. Y'all can just Google billionaire and US surrogacy, and you'll get a ton of articles that will come up other than the Mo News podcast. The most interesting and in-depth articles are in the Wall Street Journal, which if you have a friend that subscribes to it, it's easier because it's got a paywall, but they are fantastic deep dives into the different factions of this issue, whether it be the billionaires in the United States who are older or too busy and want to have someone else carry their baby, but they also want to like pick and choose the kind of baby they want. And they don't really necessarily even want to raise it, but we'll get into that as well. And then there were articles about this particular Chinese billionaire, Zhu Bo, who is a recluse except for his social media presence. And he has now, I don't want even to use the word fathered. And this is stuff that we'll get into today because he has given his sperm to these women's bodies and now has over 100 children. And he wants more. And what I thought was interesting, Jolene, and then there's a Russian. Did you read the Russian article? Where this,
oh, no.
Oh, my Lord. Where this Russian billionaire, he was told that he had spectacular sperm. So he, yes, ma'am. And so he has taken it as his moral duty to spread his seed far and wide, everyone. And he's got over 100 children in 12 countries, not counting the 6 children he has with 3 mothers of his own.
Okay.
And he has proclaimed that he will share his inheritance with whoever has his DNA. So there's that.
So there's a benefit.
So there's that. But I also say, Jolene, is that I thought it was interesting that you went straight to the US citizenship, which I found part of the problem. I think it's a perfect storm. Certainly in China. What's interesting is that here was a country that restricted their birth practices for, I guess it ended in 2015. But you have this entire several generations of people that were only allowed to have one baby. And there was an epidemic as well of Chinese girls being adopted because they didn't want girls in China. And so then they had this imbalance of so many boys and not enough girls. And now part of the research that I was doing is that some of this is revenge from that rule, that they want to have so many babies to create these dynasties that they weren't allowed to have, right? And so what's also wild is surrogacy is still illegal in China. It's illegal.
Yes.
It's illegal.
And it is and international surrogacy is actually illegal in most countries except for the United States and Ukraine.
Well, United States is the leading global surrogacy business.
And why do you think that is? Money.
Ooh, money, yes. The whole time, girl, I was like, money, power, money, power, money, power.
Money and the power.
And one thing, Jolene, that I thought was really enlightening or just aggravating, enraging was about this imbalance of power, that you have these women that are generally working poor, trying to make, being promised, and they're being recruited on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And then you have these billionaires who also run out on them. So that it turns out there's an agency, there's like a middleman agency, and a lot of the agencies are in California. And the only state
75% are in California.
And the only state that regulates any surrogacy is New York. Nowhere else.
Crazy. Yeah.
Nowhere else. And so the agency, the middleman, gets their money when they match I'm going to say billionaire. I know they match the person that's going to be the parent with the surrogate mom, right? Is that fair to say? So the agency gets the money then. And then
somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 is on average.
On average.
What the agency will get.
Yes. And the surrogates are supposed to get, it can range between, was it 50 and 80 grand, something like that?
Yep.
But they don't have any legal rights, nothing. And they are supposed to have all of their medical bills paid. They're supposed to have which is extra from the 50 to 80,000. But I read
Right.
so many stories where they had complications. They took the baby and they're stuck with $180,000 of medical debt. And that particular woman, they took her ovaries, or they took
And her fallopian tube.
her fallopian tube
Yep.
and her uterus.
Yeah.
And then she lost her job because she was trying to heal. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure there are a million horror stories from this. If you look at the reason, I think we should back up a
Yes,
little bit
yes.
and look at this. This Zhu Bo, he's a Chinese billionaire, and
he's like a video
gaming.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for him to do this is that these children, if he impregnates an American woman, his child then has dual citizenship because the woman stays in the United States, gives birth to this child, and a lot of times it's a nanny or a service that gets this child out from the hospital when it is born, keeps it and cares for it until the paperwork can get done for that kid to be shipped to China. But then in his mind, the kid has dual citizenship so that from a business perspective, these children then can run his dynasty forever and ever and have, the benefit of being both U.S. and Chinese citizens. This concept has quadrupled in the last 5 years.
Yes.
Has by 4 times in the last 5 years. And so as we talk about, follow the money and follow the power, that right there is an example of both things, money and power. But the interesting thing is, did you read about the investment bankers?
Yes.
Like all of these
scooping up the IVF clinics and agencies, and then they're trading on the Hong Kong market.
Yes, specifically Southern California.
Yes.
So these Chinese investment bankers are coming in and buying up these clinics, and these are chain clinics. And I think we should talk about surrogacy as a whole. But when you look at how many of these surrogate clinics are actually unregulated,
yes,
which is fair game as well, and they don't speak to each other. So you can have a baby from a surrogate from this agency and go down the street and have one with that agency, and that's the other thing. We don't know how many of these agencies actually exist.
No,
there was one.
Yeah, they said something
one
like
article.
Yeah.
That said between 115 and another one that said 1,100.
Exactly.
So, and that doesn't include the ones that are just doing private transactions, right? I mean, there's that. I mean, these are just the clinics. Who knows how much of this is going on, privately as well.
Yeah. I mean, I did read an article that I'm not sure if you read. It was in Newsweek that I thought was fascinating because it came from it took the angle of this is a topic that conservatives and feminists are both agreeing on. And I was
How about that? Yeah.
I was very curious about that, being a conservative. The topic of surrogacy and IVF and all that is very personal for everyone. Mm-hmm. In this particular article, they were talking about this woman who spoke at the UN that wants surrogacy abolished worldwide, that her feeling is that it is a commodification of women's bodies. They found, higher levels of trafficking and, you're selling this baby. I would say, just my own personal opinion, my own liberal Democrat personal opinion, I'm not necessarily interested in abolishing. I am interested in regulating because I think when any imbalance of power is happening and women, we've had other conversations about women and how we were raised, and I think it's a very much of a class issue. And these people are in a disadvantaged position and are being used, quite frankly. And I don't think that that's okay. I mean, this is going to sound judgy. There are so many children out in the world that need love and need good parents, and I don't understand why we don't adopt more. the more we get like in the scientific world of like ordering your baby and what color hair, and I just don't understand. I personally don't get it. I don't know what this has to do with love or being a parent or.
Can I just take this moment to point out to our listener and viewer, the liberal just said that?
Yes, exactly.
It was the
it's the liberal, and that's where it's very complicated to me. I'm not a religious person. I feel like this is a societal, like a global societal issue where we are worshiping money. We think money can make, people that are rich have different rules than the rest of us. And that we are forgetting that these are human beings that haven't had a choice. And there was one article that I read that I thought was really interesting about how, like you said, Jolene, there are these agencies that are literally agencies created to take the baby just being born from that mom, delivering to said parent in another country. And that the trauma that baby goes through with having no bonding from the mother. And it's not like we're an adoption when someone gives the baby up. This is the deal. This is the order of business.
Very transactional.
And this is a human being that has, like, even puppies, when someone buys a puppy, right? They have to wait like 8 weeks or something.
Yeah.
To like bond with the baby's mom.
Oh, I don't know that.
I did a voiceover about babies and bonding, and I think it's called the Sieffren nerves, and it's it's the bonding between and it can happen with dads too. It's the bonding between the skin to skin contact is crucial, and like this Zhu Bo guy, there are like 4 kids that he's like, I'm too busy to even go deal with the baby, so they're being raised by nannies in Irvine. I mean, it's nuts.
Okay, as a Catholic, we are against surrogacy. We're against IVF because life is sacred at conception. That conception has to happen naturally. However, me, Jolene, I have seen where a sister has carried her sister's baby. And they've raised it within a family, and it's the most beautiful thing. And they're good Catholic family, and I just can't imagine that love and that bond is a bad thing. So,
and Jolene, I'd agree with you. It's not that I don't think that
is a completely different situation.
But I also think just like
this.
that regulations would be helpful. Like there were stories where we read where they would do all the background checks on the women that were going to be surrogates, but they did no background checks on the people that were going to be the parents. And like people, they assumed that they were rich, and then they ran out on the bill, and they had a series of bankruptcies. And so it's that kind of stuff. And I know we're hearing like the bad stories, that there's a lot of, I'm sure, very successful experiences.
Right. So you're absolutely right. So I would say that it is amazing to me that in the United States, where abortion is so commonplace, that we don't have laws and regulations that would be related to the surrogacy programs. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Do you think it's money and power? I mean, do you think it has anything to do with like people not caring about the working poor?
I don't think that we've ever that we even knew that this existed. I don't think that we knew that that you could take something so beautiful as having a child and absolutely twist it into something like this. Yeah. And I even get, we read there was an article about a successful Silicon Valley executive who, has paid, who doesn't have time to have a baby, so she's paid a surrogate. Fundamentally, that is against my religion. But I'm also, that surrogate went into this knowing what she was going to carry a child for a happily married couple, as far as she knew, and she was doing a favor, and she was paid, and she was compensated for that. And you look at that transaction and you go, well, I mean, these are consenting adults. I mean, that if
but
that's what she
I thought
was,
that woman like bowed on a
well, then,
bill.
yes, right. And then there were issues, because then they claimed that the surrogate mother was taking drugs and she wouldn't agree to a drug test. And I mean, again, there are so many things that are wrong with this. It is amazing to me there are not laws and regulations.
It's shocking,
because
isn't it?
Of
it's
all
shocking.
of the things.
And I think about Gavin Newsom. Gavin, if you want to be president, this is your state, my friend. There's a lot of it happening in California. I don't understand. I mean, Jolene, I was shocked, like horrified, not just happening. I can't believe there are no regulations at all except in New York. I can't believe that if we're supposedly so afraid might not be the word, but that China is not our friend. If China is not our friend, why the hell are we letting all these Chinese billionaires make babies in this country and then take them back to create dynasties of children? And then one guy was like, I want girls. I want 10 girls so that I can marry them off to Elon Musk's children. And like they're fantasizing. And I'm thinking, is this like feudal lordship like from the 1500s? What is going on?
Well, and there's also, I think, a whole faction of human trafficking that's going on with these children and raising them in an environment to then traffic them. We're not talking about a horror movie here. This stuff is happening.
And it's shocking.
So I will say,
yes,
Rick Scott, Republican senator from Florida, has entered a bill called Safe Kids Act, and it bars foreign nationals from adversarial countries from accessing the U.S. surrogacy industry. That is great. Somebody has done something, but that is such a small portion of what could be done.
What was interesting, Jolene, is I was excited to read more about the Rick Scott bill, and I was ready to shout out this Republican about it. There's very little. It just was introduced in November, and there's very little information. It was right. It got sort of. I was like, okay, great. Let's start. Like, but then there was almost no there. So I was like, so what's happening here? Are we moving forward? Do you have any bipartisan buy-in? And I'm hearing, as I was doing my own research, that, in the liberal world, a lot of liberals would say, this is freedom. It's my body, blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, y'all, this isn't about our bodies, because I'm pro-choice. This is frightening what's happening to these women. And you could say it's a small percentage. If we're going to go, here we go, Jolene, like in the trans community, like we've been talking about 0.2% of the entire country, but it's been this huge issue that has been a very divisive issue in the conservative liberal world. And you could say, hey, there's only 11,000 babies born last year, or whatever the number is. And you think, well, that's not that many. I'm like, actually, we needed to start this small. Like, we need to get on top of this now, because this is bananas what's happening.
But the fact that 40% of those 11,000
are Chinese,
are from Chinese nationals.
Yes.
I mean, that should be alarming.
Well, to me, I'm just like, what? And maybe this is naive of me. I'm like, so why are we so mad at China? If we're so willing to let them come in and make babies, like, what's real and what's not real? Because as we know, being in this country, you are not your leader. You are in your country doing your thing. And I would imagine that not all Chinese people are like, yay, Xi Jinping. Like, I don't buy it. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
So if we are, walking around the planet as Americans saying, we got to be wary of China, like, make a decision. But what I think I'm learning from you too is it's greed. It's money. It's power. That overrides everything. That overrides these women who are like, oh my gosh, I could really use $50,000. and I'm a healthy young woman and nothing's going to go wrong. I'm just going to sign this piece of paper and there's no legal action, like none.
Yep.
So that the agency is the one that's the winner. They're using everybody. Then the parents get the baby. Maybe they pay the surrogate and maybe they don't. And then the surrogate, they're taking their life into their own hands because you never know. I've never been pregnant, but you've been pregnant 3 times. You never know, right? You can have a birth plan and it can all go sideways.
Yeah,
right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, conservatives, here's another one I'll give to you. So what if you have an illegal that is here and
an undocumented immigrant.
Okay. And they are part of this surrogacy ring. They get pregnant. They're on Medicaid. We as the taxpayers are paying for their health care while they're pregnant. I mean, there's just, again, there are so many different angles to this and none of them, very few of them are right.
I just don't understand how this is happening in this country. Yes, it might seem a small percentage like Peter Thiel has created, who's another billionaire. All these men, and I'm going to say it like this, liberal lady over here is going to say it like this. All these white men are like, oh my God, the population, we got to be, it's going down. We need to procreate. But Peter Thiel is like opening IVF agencies in all of Southeast Asia, places that I was just there. It's incredibly poor. They are so taken advantage of. And now what? Like, for the good of the world? I don't understand. That's the other thing I don't understand is like all these guys are talking about how religious they are and how they believe in God. This doesn't seem very goddish to me. This seems very it seems very scientific. This seems very transactional. Yeah. It's like here's the vessel. Forget that this vessel is a human being with health and feelings and emotions and I know that there were surrogates that were interviewed in these articles that we read that were very passionate about what they do, that they believe they are doing something good. And I am not taking that away. I just think that we are not looking at the bigger picture as to why do we regulate all these other things and we don't regulate this?
Because, let me ask you this, will this set up a bigger discussion around what rights does that baby have?
Oh, well, here's my thought, Jolene, was that going back to the very beginning of this conversation where you talked about the 14th Amendment, I, as a liberal, as whatever, as Nicole, this is what I'm thinking. I want us to be a separate law. The Supreme Court is going to rule on this year, as you said. But I don't want to pick apart the 14th Amendment to allow or to put in this stuff with surrogacy. I want the surrogacy law to have its own. I think there should be a federal law. And
not tie it with birthright citizenship.
Correct. I think as you said at the very beginning of this conversation, that these are two different things. I think this is an enormous issue. And hey, states, everyone's into state rights. States, wake up. Like, this is not okay. Why aren't we protecting our women? Why aren't we protecting these babies? If you don't want to protect the surrogates, protect the babies. Because none of this makes sense to me, everybody. If you're so pro-life, these babies are so disadvantaged. A lot of them are stuck in this weird legal limbo, being like, there's that one couple who is being charged of trafficking in California, who was taking care of 20 babies, and all the babies are now in foster care. I mean, it's nuts.
Okay, but don't you think that this is going to open up a whole can of worms for liberals who want to talk about, freedom of their bodies and it's their choice. And then aren't you getting into an issue where it could be conflated with abortion and talking about the right, when does the right of that baby start? And if it is, a viable life.
I guess what I'm talking about, Jolene, is putting in safety regulations. You put in safety regulations when you have an abortion, right? There are certain things, and I think that's come a long way, because when abortion wasn't illegal, and you'd have women going into back alleys and all these horrible complications. And then when abortion became legal, there were certain protocols that women would go in and never think they were going to lose their life. And so I think liberals would get on board with, let's regulate the process so that the women that are carrying these babies have some say, like some legal say, if something happens, to their health, or the parent runs off without paying and taking the baby, and literally these women have no legal recourse. I don't know what liberal would be like, yeah, let her fend that for herself. I mean, maybe
agree.
they would. Listen, we're all so argumentative these days. Who knows what's going to happen? I want us to get along, and I want us to find some common ground. And weirdly, I think you and I are in this episode.
Yeah. But if Trump introduces if he stands on the table for this issue and starts, the liberals will give him blowback.
I know.
No matter how great this idea is.
I want him to stay out of it.
Because it was from him.
I want it. I do.
I think if they want to get anything done.
If Rick Scott is going to do it, or some other, I want to have this be a bipartisan bill, thoughtful people getting together and really trying to figure out how to deal with this, because there's so many contradictions in this. You could get on board with, I don't want people from adversarial countries. That could be one line. Mm-hmm. The other part of, I want these surrogates to be safe and have legal recourse if something goes sideways. They could all be in the same group together, and they could be liberals and conservatives together, saying, "Hey, like, this is an issue we all need to care about." Once you heard these stories and were exposed to these billionaires who were birthing over 100 babies from surrogates from all over the country. Like, there were these stories where they'd go to one surrogate and say, okay, I want 20 babies. And the agency was like, I'll give you one. And they go, okay. And then they go to 20 other, there's no regulation. Yeah, and then there were some agencies that are like, oh, what a blessing, 20 babies. And I'm thinking, these are not, this is not.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching.
They're getting $50,000 for each pregnancy.
Baby. If you were the president, Jolene, this matter was brought to you. This was on your desk at the Oval Office, and this was your number one thing that you wanted to work on. What would you want to happen?
As the president, you have to govern everybody. And so for me to say, because personally I'm a Catholic and I don't believe in IVF, I don't think that serves everyone.
Sure.
Ideally, yes, that would be fantastic. But I've seen it. I've seen the good that actually comes of it.
Okay.
And so I could not make a law that would prohibit surrogacy.
Okay.
That's the reason I'm not running for president in 2028.
Okay.
You heard it here first.
There you go. But what does appeal to you on how to deal with this issue?
There are so many ways that I think to circumvent any laws. I mean, right? If you've got a billionaire who has gotten away with this for the last 5 years, you don't think that there is some way that he could do this privately, that is an unregulated, I mean, this is going to happen. So it's a really difficult situation because, again, we go back to the 14th Amendment. If a child is born on U.S. soil, that they are automatically a U.S. citizen, regardless of their parent's citizenship.
Is that the biggest issue for you, Jolene?
Well, I just think that's where it starts, right? Because that at that point is where all of this other starts. That's why this Chinese billionaire is having children in Southern California.
It's not the only reason.
He's not going to Saudi Arabia.
No,
he's not going to.
No. But the U.S. has no regulations. That's why they're coming to the U.S.
He wants his children to have dual citizenship to the two powerhouse nations in the world because they would be unstoppable. That was one of the things that he had talked about. Having dual citizenship between United States and China would give that child an advantage that no one else in the world, or that, very few in the world could have. And if you look at it then again from another nefarious point of view, look at the Central American women who would come across the border to have a child late in their pregnancy, so that child is an American citizen. They are more likely to get a green card, the rest of the family, the mother, the father, the siblings, to get a green card than anyone else. That pushes them ahead of the line. So yes, I think you have to start with the 14th Amendment. I think that having a child on U.S. land gives you automatic birthright citizenship.
But what about the women that are not being taken care of? Like that there's no...
that is absolutely a problem. Again, I think all the other issues stem from that, but that's the primary...
So are you suggesting that the reason that the U.S. is the global leader in surrogacy is because of the fact of birthright citizenship?
No, I think it's because we don't have any laws. I mean, I think that's really kind of we're the only developed nation in the world who doesn't have any surrogacy laws.
Yes. Do you think we could start there?
Yeah, because I don't know I guess I didn't research what other countries, what their laws are. I mean, is there a limit to you can have one child via surrogacy or three, or do you have to be a citizen of
Italy,
that?
Germany, and Spain have taken steps to stop surrogacy.
Completely.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Western European countries are coming to the realization that it's become too much of a commodification. They're not necessarily, I can't speak to their specific laws, and I don't know if they're necessarily abolishing them, but they are paying attention in a way that the United States is not. I mean, the United States, it's a free game. It's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and we are not at all looking at that there are humans involved, that there's surrogates involved, and these babies are involved. And then what happens? Yeah. And all I kept thinking as I was reading it is these babies are going to grow up to be grown-ups. What are they going to be like?
Right.
They don't have parents. They don't have the Sieffren nerves. They don't have bonding. They don't and yes, I'm projecting, but this psychologically can't be the best thing for a baby.
Yeah,
to pull them
100%.
Away from their birth mom as soon as that baby is born and put in the arms of total strangers to then be maybe brought to a new country, maybe not. Because a lot of these babies are in limbo. And this is me, the liberal. It's really upsetting to me. I'm like, why are we designing our babies? There is always going to be bad people. And it can be discouraging to even okay, so how do we move forward? But what I think is sort of interesting about this topic, Jolene, is that I think there's a lot of room in it for Democrats and Republicans to work together, to come together in a way that is for the sake of the life of the surrogate and the life of the baby. And we've never had we've never had an issue like that until now.
Yeah.
And big business is taking advantage of both that young woman and that baby. And so, Rick Scott, I wish we knew more about this bill because there's nothing to research. I'm looking everywhere and I can't find it other than, where it gets to be a little bit of a turnoff. It starts to go down, for me, the God road. Fine. But I'm really concerned about all these people being taken advantage of. That's where I don't think that should be a liberal or that's a liberal issue. Everyone's I don't know, why wouldn't a conservative be concerned about a person's well-being? I believe that you
but
do.
I think the pushback is going to be from liberals who are saying it's their bodies, their rights. Do you think that surrogacy the surrogacy program needs to be abolished in the U.S.?
No. I don't feel like I have the right to say that someone cannot do something. And as you've said many times, even though you have conflict within this topic, that you've seen some really beautiful things come from surrogate families and the love and all of that. And I know that it serves a lot of people in a very good way. And I would never tell someone you can't do that. I want to break the cycle of the power structure, that there is there's a complete imbalance of power in this situation. And here this young woman who is usually doesn't have a lot of money is going to use their body, and that's their choice, yes, but there is no fine print. They have no legal recourse. And then the people generally, this is generalization, that are hiring the agency, they tend to be very wealthy, and they have plenty of legal options at their fingertips. And if they're a creep, if they're a crook, then all bets are off. Like, that young woman is screwed. Literally or not literally, just figuratively.
Yeah.
Just figuratively. Just figuratively. And, and I'm sure that there's some surrogates that are like, I love being pregnant and I love doing this and I love helping people, and I'm good for you. I'm not saying like, okay. But also from the stories I've read, you are lucky, because there's a lot of women that aren't that lucky, that have had horrible things happen to them. And if we're concerned about trafficking,
Yep. Yeah. There was a lot to this, and I hope that we look back on this a year from now and go, wow, this was something that was new to us, and now it is part of the conversation that we're all having. So,
and it just occurred to me, Jolene, that thinking about what can we do, if you're listening to this episode right now, and you are in any state of the United States but New York, and this is an upsetting thing for you, write your congressperson, write your senator, tell them, hey, I have been reading about the U.S. surrogacy and that there's no regulation, and tell your senator and tell your congressperson that you want action taken to make these women and these babies safe. That's what you can do. Because I think a lot of people, the Wall Street Journal just broke these stories last November, so it's a fairly new business that now they're finding where things don't go very well. We are now highlighting the worst of this scenario, right?
But do you find it interesting though that that this has not been brought to the attention by either doctors or L&D departments at hospitals? Or
what's L&D mean?
Oh, labor and delivery.
Oh, okay.
Like that. If this was obviously, there had to be more people that know that this is happening. And why haven't the alarm bells been ringing before now?
I'm not really sure. And I also think, like you said, in the last 4 years, it's quadrupled. But it's still a small population, and so maybe people, it hasn't directly affected them, so they just don't know about it. And now some of the media is doing reporting and saying, whoa, like there was that one judge in California. I think that's where the story broke, actually, was one judge in California. It was about Jubo, and there were 4 embryos that he wanted to be, I guess, released. I don't fertilized, and I'm not sure that the judge.
I think they're already fertilized, but he wanted them implanted or whatever.
Exactly, and so that this judge in California was like, "Hold on, I'm seeing the same name and the same country and the same address and this, like, what's going on?" And so she said no. Like, she stopped and she's like, something is really wrong here. And she might have been the first, she might have been like the impetus for this story to come out into the national view. And I think I'm very curious, listener and viewer. Please comment. Please give your ideas, what you think, and again, I think Jolene and I are both actually kind of on the same page about, we're not saying that surrogacy is bad. We're not abolishing it, but we want some protections put in there. And I think Jolene is more concerned about the 14th Amendment and those what could happen. And I'm concerned not so much about the 14th Amendment, but if we're supposed enemies of a country, why are we letting them have babies? I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I want kumbaya. I want us to be friends with the Chinese. But this makes no sense. Do you have a good for the soul?
I do not.
Boom!
I'm so sorry.
It's quite all right. I have one for the both of us. The handle, it's an Instagram handle. ITSSOZER. His name is Samuel Weidenhofer, and he is part of the Kindness Army. And he finds people all over the world that have had hard times, and he tells their story as he's surprising them and fundraises for them. And every video, every story, every person, it's heartbreaking and heartwarming. This guy Sam seems to be the best of humanity and using social media for the best you could make it for. And I'm just wanted to share it with everybody because we need good stories. We need people who care, and just do yourself a favor and subscribe to his channel and become part of the Kindness Army.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do you have a would you rather?
I do. Do you?
I do.
Would you like to go first?
Okay.
Okay.
Would you rather have surrogacy limited to 3 children per father, or just limited to only American citizens?
Oh, that's interesting. I know I'm going to get blowback on this one, liberal. And you know what? I barely swore. I think I got so angry as I was reading all the articles that I got all my swearing out. Oh, I was so
Linda
mad.
on high alert, and
I got
then
Linda,
I don't
and then
know
I don't think I dropped even one F-bomb. I'm going to say, because it's the same thing that I just don't understand, I would say you have to be a U.S. citizen. Because I don't understand why we are letting men that we are supposedly enemies with have babies in our country. That's what I'm going to say.
So you're saying the issue is not so much their citizenship, but the fact that, or it's not that they're having 100, that this...
Oh, no, I think that's horrible.
Shubo is having...
I think it's crazy. That's my opinion. I'm like, what the hell?
Yes.
Why is he having 100 kids that he doesn't give a shit about? He doesn't even know them. He doesn't even know them. I think it's horrible. It's horrible.
It is. Okay, so you're saying though that it's the citizenship that's more important.
Right?
I know. I'm trying to get you to think.
You're trying to get me to think?
No, I mean, I didn't mean that.
Okay.
I did not mean that.
You're saying that the U.S. citizen can have 1,000 babies.
Yes. Yep.
No, that's not okay either. Listen, I'm picking zero. I'm picking C. I'm picking C because I am tired of all these men and the agencies having all the decisions when these... I'm done. I think it's gross. Would you rather be able to speak any language with any person in the world, or be able to communicate with animals?
Oh, that is a hard one for me.
I know.
I'm going with animals.
I knew you would.
I know. I would rather be with animals than humans anyway, so I would rather talk to them.
But it'd be really cool to actually be able to communicate with any person.
That would be so cool. Like when you started the question, I'm like, okay, well, I don't even care what the other part of this is because, yes, that would be such a gift.
Such a gift.
And then you said communicate with
your
animals.
favorite things.
And you know what? I have like the translator on Google. So if I go somewhere, I'm just using that. I can never talk to the animals unless I have the special gift.
I'm sure that they're coming up with that too.
I hope so. Hey, how about idiot Shoe Bo? Why don't you use your money to have us communicate with animals instead of having 100 babies?
I know.
Idiot.
Listen, it's crazy. It's sad. You're right. It's sad. And that's why I had to watch a lot of the Kindness Army, the Good for the Soul, because I was like, I've got to find some humanity here.
Find something.
Right? Because this was like, it's so dark and dystopic. Is that the word I want?
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels very Handmaid's Tale-y and
yeah.
And just like, let me mate my child with that billionaire's child and we will mate them and
create the perfect human.
And you're like, hello, Nazi Germany. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I said it. Girl, this was a good one. I don't know, everybody.
We would love to have your feedback on this. Please contact us. Let us know how you feel. We would love to see and read your comments on this. So,
and if you have any ideas on how we move forward with this, that would be great. And please contact your congressperson and your senator. Let them know that this is important to you. It's important to us. And you, my friend, are important to me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You are to me.
There you go. We've got to talk, everybody. We've Got to Talk is produced across the world by the wildly talented, creative, and hilarious team at Bambi Media. Our theme song is Jump Jive Swing by Space Train Unlimited. Thank you so much for listening, and join us every week for another episode of We've Got to Talk.